All right. Hello, hello. Um, let's see. Hello, everybody. It's tentacle time. Yes, we are now at the Infested. So there is new music, and it was just finished today. Unfortunately, my computer says it will take an hour to download because of my crappy internet speeds. So, unfortunately, we have to go ahead and move forward without it tonight. But rest assured, there will be, we're still rocking the Intrati music for now, and then next week we will have some more custom stuff. But yeah, no, Phenomenist finished it up and sent it over to me, and I cannot receive it yet. Such is life. But yeah, it's been super busy for me today, so I apologize for the late stream time start. I don't want to keep y'all too late, but then again, it is a Friday night, so what better time to stay up late and look at some nice Warframe art. So, yeah, I guess we can just go ahead and get started. So we got a nice banner pick here. This looks like this reminds me of concept art of the space infested, like in the Eris regions, the type of stuff that the type of infested that infects like the ships and the outer planet places around Eris. It's 12 a.m. for me. So sorry to keep you up. Alright, so we've got another forward for this section by Marco Hasman, who was, at the time of the publication of this book, the associate art director. Marco does some of the best concept work, and you will, I was going to say, I know that he's done some of the demo stuff, but I think the demo stuff actually has its own section later in the book. So I don't know if you'll see it tonight. But I love Marco Hasman's work, and unfortunately, he took his whole profile off the internet not recently, actually, like a year or so ago, because of all the AI stuff that was scraping people's art. And he's like, I don't want my art out there anymore. So unfortunately, he doesn't have an official portfolio of it, which sucks, because, again, he has great art. But, anyway. Hey, Afree? Afree. I see your name all the time, but I don't actually know how to say it. Yeah, excited to have you here for this. Yeah, so we're doing the Infested today, although I think this section is actually shorter than the other things, so we may actually get to the sentient section. We'll see. Anyway, so reading the forward from Marco Hasman. The Infestation is an ancient Orcan creation, a weaponized parasitic organism that takes over its host and morphs it into new and terrible forms. Initially designed to fight... This is like lore. Initially designed to fight the sentient through the Helminth strain and the creation of the Warframes, after the collapse of the Orcan Empire, what was left of it in laboratories and research facilities broke out, infecting Grineer and Corpus alike, becoming a common menace in the Origin system. Visually, the Infestation turns the organic elements of a creature against itself, repurposing them to new functions, bending limbs and features beyond recognition and slowly connecting its will to a collective mind. Spores saturate the air, bulbous masses and organic growths cover large surfaces, and slowly blend materials into one another. Thick, tendinous appendices pull new objects and victims into its grasp, slowly expanding its influence over centuries. Some strain of infestation proved to be able to infect robotics and inorganic materials as well, spreading more effectively across ships, outposts, and sometimes entire celestial bodies. In the heart of Deimos, for example, we wanted to explore what would happen if the infestation would run rampant, how such entities could evolve and influence an entire landscape if left undisturbed, and what new life could generate in such an environment. So that's weird that this section is like a lore dump about the infested, which is honestly pretty funny. There's some interesting things to note in here, and these like developer comments that you see in places like this, I think should, as far as canon lore is, we can't say for certain that it's canon because this is like not in the game. This is just something that Marco is writing down here. But with that caveat, interesting things to keep in mind. He says initially designed to fight the sentient. So, it's not known for sure when the infestation was created, when the technosite, was created, and now, of course, with all the stuff we know about 1999, it seems to be a lot older, even than maybe the Oricon. This says it was designed to fight the sentient through the Helminth strain and the creation of the Warframes, which we do know that the Helminth strain specifically was designed during the Old War to create Warframes. And then it also says that, during the collapse, it broke out in laboratories and research facilities, which is sort of hinted at in some of the synthesis fragments, and I have been, that is really the interpretation that I've been going with, and it is nice to see that actually written out, because it's not super clearly laid out in the lore exactly how the infested breaks out everywhere, and that has always been my guess, is that the Oricon had it in laboratories and it broke out when everything started shutting down, because even things like power systems would have been controlled by like central Oricon resource management and would have gone offline. And so when the power fails, the containment breaks, and the infestation gets out. And that's always been my guess as to where the infested comes from, because it wasn't really like an active threat around the time of the Oricon. And now we have the answer. We now have like a confirmation of the answer. And then, if we take the Once Awake quest, apparently it had been beaten back again over a long period of time, because Lotus says that the infestation is new, or like it hasn't been seen in a while. So, honestly, the lore about the infestation is really spotty. It was done over many years and has been redone. Alad V is supposed to have given it the ability to infest metal and robotics, and yet, based on some things in the game, it looks like it's always been able to do that. It is, we'll see. And, maybe like some of the other sections, there will be some more like lore written out in the notes here. So, the infested have only done like 3 things in Warframe. The infested have also eaten like a quarter of eras. Yeah, as far as like big swings go, they usually leave that up to the Corpus and the Grineer, because because the Corpus and Grineer have characters. I think that's one of the big issues with the infested in a narrative sense, is it's hard to get like sapient bosses or characters, and every now and then they do something like the Emissary, which is a cool storyline but was time limited, doesn't have much impact in the game now. Yeah, Deimos Ospreys, that's true. If you really want to be, how does Deimos have Ospreys? Where did the Ospreys come from? Because Deimos was supposed to be hidden in the void for the longest time. And so, maybe they're Orkin Ospreys. Maybe the Orkin had MOAs, so Corpus Robotics, like Ospreys, are probably also based on Orkin Ospreys. But if Alad V. Gate evolved the Mutalisk strain to be able to work on robotics, why are there infested robots on Deimos? See, that's a very good example, Ninja, of how the lore on the infested is just wonky. But let's check it out. All right, per usual, we start off with a big page of random sketches. This looks like a tendril drone, except with what is that? It's like 6 heads. There's some pods, just generic weird pod shaped. This says Heart of the Ship, which is, if any of you have seen The Expanse, I think I actually brought this up last week or the week before, the TV show The Expanse, but there's a scene, actually, it's the opening scene of the show, where there's this fungus-like organism wrapped around the reactor core of a ship, and it actually looks exactly like this, and it's really funny. And I've noticed a few other tiny parallels or references to The Expanse in Warframe, but it's really funny how it says Heart of the Ship, and then it's got this, core of infested mass with, tendrils going off in all directions. It honestly looks exactly like the opening scene of The Expanse, where you have, a similar type of substance wrapped around the reactor core of the ship. Very weird. You just have some, pods with tentacles. This... Oh, this is labeled J3 Golem. J3 Golem is... so it's the Jordis Golem is sort of the current version of it. But the J3 Golem is actually one of the oldest bosses in the game. Used to be the boss of Jupiter, which used to be an infested control planet. The J3 Golem, it was just a big ancient at the time, like a toxic ancient. And the ancients looked different back then too. But so this looks like a design maybe for a rework of the J3 Golem, which never happened because instead of reworking him, they just removed him from the game, and then a few years later brought back Jordis Golem, who is an entire ship, and so he looks completely different, obviously. But this is labeled J3 Golem, and then there's humans for scale, and they're stacked 3 tall. So this is 3 humans tall, big stumpy thing with legs. And then in here, it's in a big sack, and it's labeled Heart of the Ship, which is the same label as up here. So it looks like this boss was intended to live in a big incubation sac in the heart of the ship, and then pop out when you fight him. It actually, you know what? This looks like Lephantis. And Lephantis is the boss that replaced the J3 Golem. The dialogue is different, or actually no, some of the dialogue lines are shared. But, so it has some dialogue lines that are shared with J3 Golem, but it has a completely different name. But it does look like this. So I actually think this is an early concept for Lephantis, labeled J3 Golem, because that's who that boss was at the time. Like the Major Gore Nest in Doom Eternal, yeah. This looks like some sort of it's got a tongue, and it's sticking out like a frog to grab something into its mouth. With these sketches, a lot of times you're just like, what is this? There's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of anything to make sense of anything. All right, it says infestation. This is derelicts. I wonder if this is supposed to be an infested derelict ship, but it doesn't really look like anything. Skeletal cathedral-like husks. Oh, so I think these actually are supposed to be ships that have been wholly infested and consumed by the infestation. They don't look like this in-game, of course. This one and this one, the cathedral-like husks, they actually look like the resurrection ship from Battlestar Galactica, which had that sort of triangle shape. Generating generator flower-like spore-filled air. So there's like a spore generator that looks like a flower, and then you've got this weird spider-looking infested creature. This is a creature with a weird mouth and a tongue. This says ship we, and then it's cut off. Like they just cut off the sketch here. That one boss looks like the Mind Goblin. Oh, I'm wobbling the camera. This just says weak points. And then, yeah, on this page, there's a big thing that says work in progress. So this is actually a redesigned Forid. If you know Forid is another one of the oldest bosses in the game. And as you know, if you are familiar with him, he is just a big charger. Like an infested charger. And in the same vein, J3 Golem, who was the other infested boss at the time, was a big ancient. So, you know, the oldest bosses were just larger versions of normal units with bigger, with like powers and stuff like that. And so Forid has had this really old design, and he still does. He might be the boss with the oldest design who's still in the game. But they have had plans to rework him, and this is what I've seen this before. This was also shown off on dev streams way back in the day. Hey, buddy, my cat is not happy. But yeah, this is Forid, and these look like other concepts for, you know, the same boss. He's got these like flower things growing out of his shoulders. I like how he's got these big open spots in the head region. I mean, like the top region, because like this is the head. These are very interesting to look at, and these are very old, and these have never been implemented, which is kind of a shame. But you know, maybe they just don't have the time or like the whatever they need to put this in the game. Forid and Sergeant are the last remnants of the original Warframe process. Yes, Sergeant is the other one. And at the very least, Sergeant has gotten renamed, because he used to be Sergeant Nefenyo, and then they made Nefenyo into a real person. So yeah, but yeah, Sergeant, just a big crewman, of course. Forid, just a big charger. And they all used to be like that. Heck was like a butcher with the Heck shotgun at one point. Most of the Grenadier units were butchers. Or butcher-like. Ambulus used to be just like a black-colored normal MOA. It's funny. I thought I missed it getting home late. Yes, you are... hello, Danny, and you are lucky that I was delayed heavily by random real-life stuff. So we are starting the stream late, and as a consequence, also going to end it late. Alright, so we got an infested here. Now, you should know that this is not what what ancients used to look like. Ancients, back at the start of the game, used to look like big runners or leapers. You know, the crewmen, the ones that are clearly crewmen who have been fused and infested, the humanoid ones. The ancients used to be bigger versions of those, and then I forget when exactly, but they got a redesign to actually get a real model, which has got all these interesting parts and the long arm. People have speculated, by the way, that the long arm is because of their Orokin. Like it's an infested Orokin, and the Orokin had long arms. There's not a lot of, I would say, evidence for that. It's not impossible to think about, of course, when during the fall the Orokin all died, of course, and some of them very well may have been infested. We know that some of them were in places where infestation was breaking out. If you read the synthesis stories, a lot of the synthesis stories take place around the time of the fall. So there's there is one of the stories that talks about one of the executors was on Mars while the infestation were breaking out, and she was not killed by the infestation. She ended up being killed by some random Grenier mutant. But, you know, it demonstrates that she could have been killed and infested killed by the infested and assimilated. And then there's another story that talks about Lorists who were Orchid healers, and one of them was killed it was assimilated and infested and became like the healer ancient. And it's sort of implied that all the healer ancients you see in the infestation are, they're taking that healing trait because Lorists had devices embedded in their bodies that let them heal other people, and that's how infested healers can heal. Ninja's also saying this. Ancients are Lorists. There was a Lorist who was infested and became the infested healer. However, it doesn't appear that Lorists were Orokin in the sense that they had the long arm and they were immortal, stuff like that. So I think it's still sort of up for discussion about, and the long arm of the ancients is actually is a lot older than the public concept of the Orokin having long arms. Ballas wasn't revealed in person until Apostasy Prologue, which was 2017. Although his concept art was shown off with the long arm before that, like at TennoCon. And my internet is slow, which I have always said is the case, but in this case, it is the reason why we don't have some nice new background music, and we're still using the intro music, because I can't download the new custom music is finished, and I can't download it fast enough. Lorists were probably like Dax, servants made for a purpose. Yes, I agree. The Orkin, they loved having their like servant classes who were there to do a job, and so the Lorists, they had they had technological devices embedded in their bodies to heal. They served the Orokin, but they were not, as we usually use the term, Orokin themselves. And so this idea that ancients have the long arm because they're infested Orokin, because some of them are infested Lorists, I think it's not a good like A to B to C progression there, or connection. But it is all possible. So that's it. These things are still up for exploration. Honestly, like Reb said during the art panel, it was totally all planned. Yeah. So these look like more concepts for Forward. I wonder if any of them are reused. Yeah. So these are just sort of more filled-in versions of these outlines. Different poses, sometimes quadrupedal, sometimes not. Different arrangements of like the limbs and stuff like that. This is like a large infested beast. Dead parts sprout bubbly, tough flesh to absorb bullets. Interesting. Okay, so I think this is like a big beast, and when you shoot off its limbs, then it sprouts new flesh to cover like the socket, like where the limb used to be, and then it becomes impervious to bullets at that point. That's an interesting, design sort of feature. And this makes it look like a charger, although these other silhouettes don't look like a charger at all. This one does. So this looks sort of like what Ford looks like now, the big charger with the spines on his back. And then these look like, I don't know, something else. Would be cool to hear about some of the enigmatic rituals investigated by the Lorists. Well, yeah, so the Lorists were healers, and there were different categories of them. Some of them were combat healers, and some of them were like relief workers or aid workers type sort of thing. So I don't know how much like sort of rituals they had. I think, because they were just going around healing people. Shows up late with Starbucks. I think the infested are cute in a weird way like pugs. Well, I don't know that I would agree with that, but I also don't really think that pugs are that cute either. Not to I mean, everyone's got their opinions on that. Third top row of concepts remind me of Era. Do you mean this third row or like one of these? Because I don't think these remind me of anything. Although maybe Lefantas. Just with the long necks and random legs. But this one I could also see being Era. You know, because they're like, these designs, there's like not a lot of body. There's like a skeleton there, and then there's not much in between the bones, which is also very much what Era looks like, you know? Yeah, forward concepts, yeah, so yeah, I definitely see the resemblance with Era here. And then here we've just got Mutalised Osprey, Infested Osprey. The cool thing is that it's like half infested, so you have like this half is like just a normal wing, and then this wing is completely infested, as is the body. And you even have the little antenna on the side here, and then it's sort of missing or transformed. It's, you know, I don't know if it's like an angle thing on the other side. I really like how a lot of the infested stuff are like, it's like a bifurcation. There's like half is infested, half is not. So this is an infested jackal, and it looks like its rear leg and then the front opposite arm are like totally infested, and then like the front half of its body, and then you have the other two legs are fine. Again with like the halfway, you know, the way that the infestation does it like halfway. You know, it's funny. Infested jackal here. We obviously don't see any infested jackals. This is also the old version of the jackal that's like yellowish, and you know, so doesn't look like what the jackal is now. This is some other. So this we've seen before. This robot with like the curved legs that go down into the body and the top hat looking thing. We've seen this in the corpus section, and it's like some model of Moa that never made it into the game. And then so now we've got an infested version of this, and here it says the start of the infestation, sort of at the joint here. Fully infested arm, head being consumed by infestation. So, you know, it starts and then it works its way. It's interesting that it, you know, starts here and then goes across the rest of the body and doesn't go down the other way. I wonder if there's like a lore reason it only moves in one direction, or if they just wanted to make that look cool. I assume the latter. And then here you've got an infested Grineer. And now, so this, there is a unit similar to this called the Undying Flyer. It's not easy to find, because I think these days it only shows up maybe in the Zealoid Prelate Assassination. I think might be the only place you find this. And maybe in Railjack, in the Vale with the Derelict when the Infested are there. It might be there too. But it's in like really rare places. It doesn't show up in normal missions. And it did show up more in the Derelict missions that happened during the Emissary Nightwave thing, which obviously isn't happening anymore. But so these are Grineer Hellions. It's locked to the Zealot Baby Jail. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it only appears in the Zealoid Prelate mission on Exekius on Deimos, I think is the name of the node. But it's a Hellion, so it's got the jetpack, and then when you kill it, like, the jetpack part rebuilds itself, and then it like basically resurrects the unit. So you have to like stay on top of it, or else because it'll come back, which is why it's called the Undying Flyer. I can't remember exactly how it works mechanically, but it's something like that. You just have to kill both parts of it, or it'll just rebuild. Here we've got an infested ship. This obviously turned into Jordis. You see like the, you know, this square part, and then the cables or hoses or whatever, and it becomes like wholly infested but keeps the shape. These are infested tendrils. This is pretty kind of similar to what Jordis Golem looks now. And then this is the infested crewman, which we know is the runner and the leaper. And, you know, the top half is also the crawler. It's sad because it's really cool. I agree. I think the Undying Flyer, we don't see a lot of infested Grineer. The Chargers are actually Grineer, but they're like quadrupedal and they're all twisted up, and like the head is underneath. So it's hard to tell unless you like really examine the model, which you're not going to do because it's attacking you. It's hard to tell that it's a Grineer. But so this is like real, pretty noticeably an infested Grineer. And I think that's cool. I think we could use this in more missions. I don't know why they don't just put it in the rest of the missions. Its claws were released as a claw skin last Nightwave. Yes, I believe that is true. I also prefer the infested aesthetic. The corpus are just goofy. Yeah, the corpus are goofy, and that's like very clearly on purpose. They like the big boxy aesthetic. So here's another thing of the Jordis Golem. Interestingly, I think this might have been designed... I think this might have been, like, before they just said it was, like, a big ship, because this has got feet. It's got legs and feet, and it's standing on the ground. And the Jordis Golem now is, like, an actual, like, a capital ship. He's, like, kilometers long. Or, I think it's probably a part of a ship, not... so maybe not that long, but it's massive and it's in space and it's not on the ground. This thing is walking on the ground, so maybe this was originally, but this isn't. This is floating. I don't know what. Maybe it was supposed to land at some point on the planet surface. This is really weird because this is it's got the big square head. This is clearly the Jordis Golem, but it's walking on the ground on four legs. It's very weird. The box is glorious, yeah. Grineer have the best aesthetic. They have cannons bigger than Eidolons and jumping tanks. Yeah, the jumping tanks is really weird. I remember when the Thumpers came out, I was like, what? Sully. Surprise cat. Here, say hi to the camera. Oh, no, he's not happy. Yeah, so I came home 10 minutes before I started streaming. And I had to hurry to get everything set up. And so my cats are like, we haven't seen you all day. We would like some pets. And, they're a little annoyed at me. I'll have to give them some attention after this. Jordis is a cruise ship like the ones you see in Railjack. So Jordis has been... I don't believe that's true. It's been a long time since I've done that. And the cruise ships do have this, long vertical square shape. That's... I haven't thought about that. I'll have to go back and check, because Jordis is, of course, much older than Railjack, but that model with the vertical corpus ship was starting to get implemented around that time. You see it in that same tile set. The infested ship tile set is where it shows up. So, or where it showed up at first. So I can't say that you're wrong, but it does that. I'll have to think about that. Jordis is a cruise ship. I could definitely see that. You guys calling the Kavat a cat are posers. It's true. I have 3 Kavats. I don't know what a cat is. I thought the whole wreckage around the Golem fight area was part of the ship Jordis was operating. Yeah, see... Yeah, Jordis is, I think that he's an obelisk. And he's part of an obelisk. And you see the other parts of it all over the place. And cruise ships don't have cephalons. I guess I wouldn't say we know that. Yeah, Ninja Master's right. They could have cephalons. There is... I will bring it up real quickly, because there is actually, speaking of the synthesis imprints, one of the synthesis imprints is from Jordis. And it's the dumbest and shortest of them. It's not a story, it's just very short. It's just a... Yeah, so... it's just him narrating. I'll just read the whole thing. It says, "First, my crew were torn down and consumed. Then my segments were ripped out and crushed. Now I lay blind, but feel its growth through each failed system. And with nothing but time remaining, Jordis is forced to wonder, will its complete infiltration bring some vicious mercy or a new nightmare?" That's the end. And then it's signed Jordis, Ship Cephalon, 3rd Class Frigate. So he identifies himself as a 3rd Class Frigate. We don't necessarily know how that, compares to the rest of the actual types of Corpus ships. But I've never thought about him being a cruise ship. I always thought it was one of the big capital ships. Galleons also have a screen with some writing that I haven't translated, as well as a geometric shape that might be a cephalon. Is it the cube? Are you talking about the cube thing with like a chunk taken out of it? Because I have seen that on some Grineer screens, but it's not limited to. Well, this doesn't mean anything because DE reuses all their assets. But that screen is not limited to galleons. I've seen it on like the series shipyards tile set. I think the Sea Lab tile set as well. It's whenever they have to reuse one of the big screens. Because the big screens, they show up anywhere. But one of the Grineer the screens, which I also have not translated yet, I've got tons of screenshots, and one of these days I'll just sit down and do them. It has this like cube-shaped thing. Cephalons are more rare now that the Orkin aren't turning people into them. No way Jordis would be a cruise ship. That's also, at the time, it wasn't necessary. At the time that Jordis was the 4 square things making a triangle. The 4 square things making a triangle. I can't figure out if you're talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, but whatever. So Jordis and Ordis, of course, before him were, it wasn't until Spectres of the Rail that we learned how the cephalons were created, and then it wasn't until Glassmaker that we learned that we got some more information on the process, and I guess we can't say for sure that it's not still ongoing. It seems unlikely that cephalons are still being made. But yeah, it was the older lore does treat cephalons as fairly common, and tons of Corpus ships have them. Darvo talks about selling you a new one to replace Ordis. So cephalons were a lot more dime a dozen back in the day, and I don't know how DE wants to reinterpret that lore if they do. Whatever. Darvo says yes. Let's. One sec, I'll post in the Discord. Okay, yeah. If you post in the Discord, I'll just bring it up and. Because I feel like you are talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, but it's hard to, verbally describe it. All right. This is why it takes so long to get through this thing. So here we've got. This is very interesting. I've seen this. This I have seen before. This is concept design for the infested boiler. Yeah, this is the boiler. Okay, I see that you posted. Yes, that is what I was talking about. Yeah, it's like a cube with a piece of it taken out of. I have seen that. I've never thought that it could be a cephalon, but that is an intriguing thought. And there's no reason why it couldn't be a cephalon. So that's yeah. So there are some Grineer screens that may have a cephalon. Hi, PD. Anyway, just to go back to this is a infested boiler concept, but it looks like they also did concepts of what it initially was, which is this Orkin robot thingy, and this is the halfway infested part, and this is the fully infested part. This looks, if I had to say, it sort of looks like the Necromech Prime infested thing. I think it's called the Carnolith Prime that came out with Nidus Prime accessories. I didn't buy that pack, so I don't have a good idea of what this looks like. But I've kind of seen it. So this kind of looks like the Prime infested Necromech. Ugh. But yeah, this is not anything that we have seen before, really. It's interesting to think that boilers, they come from something else. This is very cool. And like, what was this robot for? What did it do? And this just like gives us so many questions to ask. All right, we've got some more forage designs. They really this is like, Forward, of course, is a big charger right now. This looks like they took the big charger, they made it more skeletal. Maybe this was the first step in turning it into this. And then, yeah, so this is like the sort of high-quality concept that I've seen before, where you've got this thing, and you've got this, like, bony part, and then you've got the shoulder connections, and then, like, things sprouting off of like the one shoulder. Different color palettes here. And then you've got so these are 3 infested creatures that we have not really seen before. So this one has a big arm that you can shoot stuff out of. This one also has an arm that you can shoot stuff out of. This one has like a really big, thick arm, and it looks like the other one you can shoot things out of. Jeez, why not? But this one looks like almost like an alien, like from the movies, from the Alien movies. Because it's got like the head crest thing, and then it's also got. I can't tell if this is... Yeah, this is its left arm is, like, long and then has these, like, spiky... This is very interesting. But yeah, these 3 designs, as far as I can tell, they don't really show up. This one, for some reason, looks like a amalgam alkanost. It's just like a big floating thing. Or maybe a very small thing. It's hard to tell the scale. And then over here we've got, this is a Juggernaut, of course. These are the 2 Mutalists. There's the Sworn Mutalist and there's the Tar Mutalist. And I don't know which one's which, honestly. Or I don't know what, like, they look like. But these are the 2 Mutalist Moas. Mutalist Moas is the word. Moa is the word I have not been saying. These are the 2 Moas. They showed up around, like, when Aladvi started doing his thing and making infested robots. And this is a Juggernaut. The Juggernaut is actually the infested enemy that was designed by the fans. They did this, and I mentioned this in the last stream, I think, where DE had a contest where there's like, hey, fans, design us an enemy. And the Grineer one was a Manic, the Sentient one was the Bursa, and the Infested one was the Behemoth, the Juggernaut. And those 3 enemies eventually, made it into the game. They started off as fan concepts. It's very cool. And they don't do. That sort of thing seems logistically tricky to do, so they don't really do them anymore. So here we've got. So this is an infested Grineer soldier. It seems pretty obvious. This is camera's wobbling again. This is a Grineer infested soldier, but its right arm is grabbing its face and is starting to fuse into its face. And if that looks familiar to you, this is the pose that leapers and runners are stuck in. They've got their right arm and it's like grabbing their face, but it's fused and they can't ungrab. So their right arm is just worthless. It's just stuck to their face. This is a Grineer soldier, but of course the runners are Corpus. So it's funny. I wonder if this came first or if this was an homage to it. Whatever. Top right wood. We'll get there. This is the infested jackal we've seen before. This looks less infested than the other one from a couple of pages ago. Because this one had like full tentacles and stuff. This one actually has 4 mechanical limbs, and it's got, this limb has got like a bunch of infestation in like the joint area. There's got some like fungus growths up here and like on the surface of the metal, it looks like. And then these cables are now really long and tendrily. But it doesn't look like its structure has really deformed much. So it's like in the early stages of infestation. Alright, so up here, what these have also been shown off on DevStream before. These are concepts for Mutalist Alid V. So down here is the actual Mutalist Alid V fight. This is the model, and it's like half Alid V, and then the other half, like the right half is human, normal, and the left half is like pretty infested. He's got like a claw for a hand, he's got these growths all over the place. And he's got his collar, which the collar is not an infested thing, it's actually what he uses to control Zanuka. He had it like from the start, way back in the day. In his normal boss fight, he has the collar. But here it's now half infested, again on the left side. And his facial scarring is also on the left side. So he's like right half normal, left half infested. And this is how you fight him, Mutalist Alid V. And so these are concepts of what he would look like fully infested. If he wasn't cured from the Mutalist infection, and he's like now fully an infested thing, and the blue, which is like his coat, is now just his outer body. And so these are really, really interesting. I revoke my wood. Yeah. These are really interesting. Here you've got like, he's got 4 legs, and then he's got 2 arms, so he's like got 6 limbs now. Like, this is cool, like a centaur looking thing. This one flies, he's flying around the battlefield. And then this one, he's like, I don't know why he's so wide on the bottom, but these are some very cool designs. Either like any of these. I'm vibrating my desk way too much for this. I apologize. This is an easier setup, but again, it's now prone to wobbling, and I do want to find a way to solve that. But yeah, I would love to see any of these in the game, honestly. But it doesn't really work because Alid got cured. He is no longer infested. One of the few characters to actually be like reversed in that sense. Finally, Ninja said something sensible. Revoking the wood. I can tolerate tentacles, but I cannot tolerate that cockroach. Yep, Alid V, certainly a cockroach. Playing every side until he comes out ahead. And then here we've got a Broodmother along with the maggots. That's fairly simple there. I don't want to flip ahead and see how long this section is. Okay, so I think we will actually get to. Yeah, I think we might get to the sentience. So, all right. So here is interesting. These look like earlier versions of the Broodmother, because down here, this is what Broodmothers actually look like. I think these are also Broodmothers based because of the color palette and like this shape here, and because there are maggots on this page. So, but these are, it's not. I guess they'd be contained in like this bulb. The central part looks like a big bulb. In this, it looks less like a bulb and more like I guess a container. I mean, those mean the same. He doesn't come ahead though. Yeah, yeah. Alid V is never as successful as he would like, and honestly, right now his fate is ambiguous because it seems like he might have died in the New War. If he was on that ship that Visa was on, again, that is ambiguous. but they like to bring Aladvi back. So, from a meta narrative perspective, I would say he's probably still alive. But from just a strictly in universe perspective, it does appear that he's dead. But he could have been on a different ship. It's not clear. But that is the last we hear about him. We've heard about Neff and Parvos since the New War, but not Alad. Alright, so Broodmothers. Here we've got a good Lephantis thing with 10 for scale. Interestingly, Lephantis is actually much larger than this in the game, so the scale is not accurate. Does anyone remember calling him Saladvi? No, that's people still do that actually. That is so. Phenomenist and I played Warframe. We started playing Warframe back in the day, and then he sort of fell off a little bit. I assume that's okay to say. But yeah, but no, people 10 years ago were calling him Saladvi. So and they still are now. It's one of the few memes that has transcended time. I just call him Jelly or Cockroach. Interesting. Why Jelly? I mean, Cockroach I understand. That's basically just a description. Alright, so I've got a big Levantis, gun body, parentheses, former ancient. Grenade body, parentheses, former Corpus spaceman. Melee body, parentheses, former Grenier, question mark. And of course this is, the gun body, it's got this crest, which is what the ancient infesteds have. The what is this called? Grenade body. It's got the boxy head of a Corpus crewman. Teal calls him a jellyfish. He does. All right. Well, that answers that question. I mean, those. I haven't listened to those lines in a while. I mean, because it's from a time-limited event, of course. And then this part has always been described as like a Grenier head, but it's not. You can't see it, but actually in the game when you do fight him, he's got like a a Grenier face, in between the arms, under the head part, and that's the part you have to shoot. So I guess there is a Grenier side to this, but this doesn't resemble a Grenier in any way. It's like you have to see the hidden face to be like, oh, that's a Grenier. Side note, Lephantis / the thing that Lephantis was named after predates the Old War. Yes, so that is true. There's around Duviri you can find these little tablets with trivia questions, and they're from the Zariman. They're part of the teaching curriculum, and one of them mentions a person from the Old War. I'm just going to pull it up so I don't say the name wrong. So, the question is, what event concluded the 18th Radiation War? And the wrong answer, and there's two answers, and the wrong answer is the assassination of Marcellus Ambrosius Lephantis, who is a person with a Latin-ish sounding name. And that, even though that's the quote-unquote wrong answer to the tablet, it does, to me, indicate that this person did exist and was assassinated. Else it doesn't make sense, to be an answer on the multiple choice question. But yeah, so this was a person during the Radiation Wars who was assassinated and named Lephantis. And so, it's interesting to think about what that means. Do the infested come, did they feature prominently in the Radiation Wars? It seems like they might have. And, is Lephantis the creature named after Lephantis the person, or is Lephantis the person turned into Lephantis the creature by assimilation? Also questions we can ask. So, having that little tidbit that was, revealed to us in Duviri was, it's cool because it gives you these things to think about. All right, so this is the Helminth Infirmary. This is actually what it used to look like. The chair is the same. The chair has not really changed. But when they first introduced this room in the orbiter during the Glass Gambit update, it looked different. Now it's just a big. It's an infested room. The whole thing is infested. It used to look like a clean techie type room. You know, the same type of Tenno technology as everything, and it's like kind of overgrown with infestation, but not like fully overgrown. So it did look like this, and then the chair, you know, it's like a doctor's chair. It's kind of overgrown with infestation. Nowadays, the room is like fully infested. Like you're like, you know, there's like stuff growing on the walls and stuff like that. It just looked like I've always thought it looks like a dentist's chair. Which is like not good. But yeah, so this is the Helminth chair, in the infirmary, and this is what it used to look like. This, I think, I'm actually not sure what to think now. I thought this was like a person who was like kneeling and like fallen backwards, and they got infested over time. Now I'm not entirely sure, but it's something. It's some infested thing. That is really that's how I feel about so much of this. I'm like, yes, that is an infested thing. It's also a flower garden. Yes, the Helminth room now has a flower garden. So these are sketches we've seen before. These top two rows, I think we saw these in the Dark Sector section, or maybe the Project Lotus section. This just looks like a thing that emits gas, like noxious fumes. I don't know why. And then this is stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And this is version 1, version 2. However, I don't know what this is originally supposed to be concepted as. You may recognize this as the esophage or esophage. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it, but it's the thing on Deimos, and it was also during the Jordis Verdict trial. If anyone played that before that got removed, but it's a thing. You walk up to it and you press X. And this tentacle comes out of it, grabs you, and sucks you in. And it teleports you, it transports you to a new location. So this is how you like get out of the isolation vaults on Deimos. Enferon gas, maybe. Wasn't the Enferon gas supposed to be anti-technosite? It's from Dark Sector, and I have not played Dark Sector, so I'm like receiving all of that information secondhand. But I think the Enferon gas was supposed to be anti-technosite, so I don't know why this thing, which I'm assuming is infested, is emitting it. But yeah, so this is an esophage. It grabs you and transports you somewhere else, and you get spit out at another esophage. These are just some, I don't know, spore things. Just random things. So I think we're actually we don't have we only have a few more pages, and they're like these big, large things. So this is, I've seen this before. I think this is described as like a spore pod or something like that. Like I think this is like one of like the basic spore units. This is an infested Fomorian ship. Nothing like this is in the game. But it's cool concept art. And here we have infested obelisk, pillar, and stanchion ships, which is very cool. This one's got claws like this one looks like a lobster, like a carcina. Infested pillar looks like a. I hate the way that OBS does this, because I can fix that actually. I can fix that. Infested pillar looks like a spear. There we go. Now I can see the whole thing. Yes. Sorry, I'm just messing around with OBS for a second. Infested pillar looks like a spear. Yes, it does. Yeah, with the pointy bits on the end. But yeah, this one looks like a fucking lobster. Technosite nanocell. Yeah, that sounds more like what this is supposed to be. Technosite nanocell. But yeah, because I've seen these concepts before, posted online by the various artists. And, okay, so this is a corpus obelisk that's been infested. This looks, I think, more like what the Jordis infested ship looks like. I wonder if I yeah. Try to reduce the glare on this, but this picture I believe is also in the codex fragments, like for Eris or for Technosite or something like that. This is an infested Ogma. Also not something you see. You don't really see infested ships, Grineer ships. I know that they you can do missions on like infested missions on a Grineer ship, and like there's shit growing on the walls, but you don't see them from the outside the way you see like the Corpus infested ship. Speaking of which, here we've got these are concepts of like an infested ship tile set. Obviously the Corpus is the Corpus infested ship tile set is like the one we have. And then for the Grineer ships you just have a variant of the Grineer ship, but for the Corpus you have a full new tile set with like new tiles that are all messed up and infested and stuff like that. Very hard to navigate through too. It's kind of an annoying tile set, but it is interesting because it shows you parts of the Corpus ship that you don't see in like the normal Corpus ship tile set. Person for scale. I don't know what. I think this is a Warframe, but it's got stuff sticking out of its head. So I actually don't know what Warframe this is. But yeah, so you've got some just infested ships, and then you've just got some infested something here. I think? Huh. No, I don't know. Yeah, this is just something. And then this is, I believe, more concept art for like the infested planet. Yeah, Eris / Deimos. They've been here's some more of the infested planet. I think parts of this went to Eris because they redid the Eris skybox. And then parts of it went to Deimos, which is a completely infested planetoid. So they had these plants for an infested planet, and then a lot of it went to Deimos. But so this is, I think, one of the concepts art for it. Maybe when we get infested railjack, we'll get some of those. Yeah, I'm thinking the infested railjack, which we saw a teaser of at TennoCon. I'm thinking that we'll get some more of this infested in space type stuff. But yeah, just more stuff, more infested stuff. Yeah, this is the Corpus ship toss up, but with a Grineer for scale, just because Corpus ship. Something I don't see. There's like nothing recognizable in this image here. It's just infested. Definitely looks like Deimos. Yeah. Corpus. I think these are all just Corpus ship. This is like I think this is some version of the Pillar or Obelisk class ship. It's funky. It's got some weird angles on this. Eris is still a planetoid shape with some chunks taken out, but Deimos is just a mess. Yeah, so, well, like I said, there's a variety of, like, concept work done. So on this, you've got, like, this big mess, which is similar to what Deimos looks like, and then here you've got, like, a planet with some chunks taken out of it, which is also kind of what Eris looks like now. So, like I said, they sort of just split it up and used it for both. But yeah, we just got some nice Corpus... infested stuff. And then this is... Yeah, we're getting close to the end here. I I believe this big, complicated thing was actually used for the Cambion Drift / Necrolisk. Oh, wow. Sorry, that's shaking a lot. I gotta just stop, like, messing with the desk. I always find it weird how there are chargers on infested corpus ships. I mean, yeah, like, that's... Yeah. Don't try to explain why the units are everywhere. Why the same units are everywhere. But yeah, I think this is supposed to be the Cambion Drift, maybe in like an earlier concept, but it's like a fully infested landscape, which, you know, Cambion Drift is certainly... Here you've got a nice big panoramic photo of nothing that I can recognize. Once again, like a nice infested sort of landscape. We've got some corpus-looking like lockers or something down here, but literally everything else is like not really fathomable. You just got infested stuff. That's what it is. That's what it is. All right. Maybe the infested makes them go. Yeah. So that was the infested. Honestly, I think that was like the section that I was gonna find the least interesting, so I'm kind of happy that we're through with it. And yeah, I think we'll just continue on and go through the sentience. I don't know how long... this section is longer. I think what we'll do, depending on if that works out, is we'll go through like the sketches and diagrams and stuff, and then we come to the part where it's like big, where like these things, where it's like big expansive art pieces, because there's actually quite a few of them in the sentient section from what I can see just by flipping through it. There's like a lot of them. Once we get to that part, I think that'll be around the 2-hour mark, and we will end it there. And then we'll start the next stream just going through these beautiful, gorgeous sentient stuff. But so yeah, let's take a look at like the sketches and the concepts and the designs for this sentience, which is very exciting. You got this nice tunnel looking... I think this is like inside a Murex or Pregasa or something, and you're like looking longitudinally through it. Because you just got this big cavity. You know, it stretches on for a while until you get to this like light source down here. But yeah, this is really cool. Alright, Keith Thompson, concept artist. I love Keith Thompson. The starting point for the sentience orbited a concept of artificial life forms designed to colonize a new place in the galaxy. The initial take on their design was far more organic and, in a way, too independent feeling. A slight pivot changed the thinking around the sentience to more of a synthetic life form designed to be a tool with a limited term of life. This resulted in actually adapting a lot of the original sentient ships and technology language into a colder, more distant, and robotic type of life form. To instill a sense of consciousness and culture, they incorporated strange primordial faces with large hooded eyes and small mouths, much of which was influenced by Neolithic sculptures and idols. These features are often quite small and almost hidden away to imply their nature as shamed tools of the Organ, sent off to toil in the farthest reaches with no hope to ever return home. That is very interesting. I mean, once again, this is why I bought the art book, was to hear these insights into the design language. It's very cool. So they were always designed to be... at least from the part... So sentients were mentioned way, way, way back in the Excalibur Codex entry, which is still there if you want to go look it up. If you just look up Excalibur's Codex entry, it's got that short blurb. Actually, does it even? Yeah, it mentions the sentience. It does. But I will just double check because I can. The sentience. Yeah, okay. So it does mention the sentience. Okay. So how does a faction with like 6 notes have a bigger section than one of the big 3? Well, because the sentients are just cooler. And there's like a good diversity of forms there. There's like a bunch of different types of sentience, and there's really only a few few types of infested. Like, you got your runners, leaper, chargers, ancients, and, like, boilers and broodmothers. But there's, like, a lot of sentients, including some that you don't see very often. So, but I don't know. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, like, the things that make the sentient faction, distinct visually, they're very intentional, which is, I suppose, not surprising. But yeah, they're supposed to be tools with limited lifespans. They're not supposed to be thought of as individuals, which is why their faces are very small. I don't know how many of you have ever actually noticed a sentient's face, but it's... so just opening it up. So this is a conculus with the big baton arms. The face is right here. It's at like the apex of this arch, and it's very tiny. They've got two eyes. They don't really have a mouth that you can tell. But yeah, that's the face, and like you never notice it because it's not the prominent part of the sentient. But yeah, and they weren't supposed to be. So there's actually a lot of text on this. Alright, so starting here, the bane of my awesome and thematic toxic build. Sentients used to, not that long ago, they were immune to status effects. Corrosive. Yeah, the sentients used to be immune to status effects, and then when they were doing the new war, they were like, oh wait, we're gonna have you fight sentients a lot, we better make them normal enemies. They're like cells of the body, the individual machines don't really matter. It's true, yeah. At least for like the sentient like units. The named characters is a different deal. Alright. So here we've got a sentient. This looks like one of the traditional sentient fighters, but without arms. Sentients. So these are labeled solar wings. These. So these are labeled solar wings. These parts of the shoulder that go up over the body. It's interesting. And then on the legs, they've got these spikes that are labeled lots of little targets to shoot off. So you're supposed to shoot off these spikes, I guess, for some reason. They don't have those spikes, and you don't need to shoot them off. So must have been something that got scrapped. Sentients return. Quote, thank you, Tenno. Sentients act like they know them personally. So these seem like notes for some event that was going to happen where the sentients, return and talk to the Tenno, which is not really how it goes. They show up around Second Dream time. And then nowadays you can encounter them a lot earlier on the plains of Eidolon, or in the enrichment labs if you, for some reason, are a new player and you decide to explore the enrichment labs and you find the sentients. You can encounter them on Jupiter for some odd reason as a new player. So, I personally think they shouldn't have done all these sentient stuff in the early game and should have kept that for some big mid-late game reveal. Late game reveal. Because that's because that's how I experienced it. The sentients weren't a thing for many years, and then all of a sudden they were. So I think that's a cool feeling that they could try to replicate with newer players, but that's not how it is. Slow movement / big smoke. So this looks like storyboarding this event, where the sentients show up. Man, that would have been a really cool thing. Fighting sentients is simple. Just apply shovel until the screaming stops. Yep, just like that one Grenier did. Is that why they feel so much less threatening? Yeah, they did a lot of things to sort of tone down the sentients. And also, just putting so much narrative focus on them means that they have to introduce a bunch of sentient grunts for you to fight, and that makes the faction as a whole less threatening if there's little ones that you can just step on. So Yeah, but back when it was like every now and then you'd encounter them and they'd like kind of kick your ass unless you were prepared for them. That was like those were different days. And like the feeling of them as a faction was a lot different. So, buried sentient cave escape. This is big scrolls. I don't know what big scrolls means. Escort missions. Something ship. This is just some escort mission with the Lassette. I don't know what. Intercept sentient attack Arcwing. Support sentients arrive. Well, I need a fucking magnifying glass for this. Shootable shots? 100 kilometer. 5 to 15. What the clouds plus smoke. Background motion and effects. Why is this so narrated? Explanation. Arcwings tethered to moving enemy. Okay. Shield generators, various targets, strategy, thrusters / engines increase speed. Common. Communication tower, parentheses, summons aid. So, let me just put this back. So this is describing some sort of escort mission / quest where you're like fighting sentients on like a moving ship. They've actually had variations of this back when Railcheck was first introduced, not under that name. It wasn't. They didn't have a name for it. But during the TennoCon 2017 art panel, they showed off like concepts of Railjacks, and were like, you're gonna fight. You're gonna have like moving battles with this ship, where you'll like fight people like, you know, and the descriptions that they have around here are, basically the same. It's like you're tethered to the ship, you're fighting people. You have to shoot the support sentients. You have to disable the communications tower. All while this thing's flying through space. You can, destroy the engines to make it slow down a bit. And then this is sort of implemented in the pursuit mission on, I think, Keeler Saturn. It's like maybe the least played mission type, other than Lunaro, of course. But it's like where there's like this Grineer ship that you have to disable. You have to chase down and disable it, and then like hack it. It's this very weird mission type that doesn't. Yeah, but this. I mean, this is. They've got all these descriptions of mechanics on how you're gonna do this. Maybe it was supposed to be a raid. In Veilbreaker, even fighting a single Conculus should be like a boss fight with a veiled Grineer and Corpus taking the place of grunts. I agree. Yeah, the fact that Call can just sort of roll over these sentients is a little weird. And, like, he's supposed to be, like, this very badass Grineer, which I could kind of get if they maybe talked it up a little bit more. Like, if they had, like, other Grineer being like, oh, wow, that's, like, the steroid Grineer, or something like that. Because, yeah, Call is just, like, demolishing these sentients, and it does feel weird. Grineer troops or soldiers are, like, super soldiers. We just don't think about them because they're not super soldiers to Tenno. But even still, they shouldn't be... Call should have a much harder time dealing with sentients. Everyone should. Lunaro, great retro reference. So, yeah, you didn't know the Pursuit mission exists. Yeah, go check it out on Saturn. It's an Arcwing mission. And you've got to chase down this ship. It's on one random node of Saturn. It's just very weird. Sadly, I can't stay to watch the rest, so I have to rewatch this tomorrow. Yeah, the VOD will be posted on YouTube, so you can just view the rest. Oh, well, thank you for your kind words. Yeah, scared to death of the sentients. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when they were added, they were pretty scary. And yeah. All right, well, take it easy, and thanks for hanging out, and we'll just keep going. So, but But yeah, this is interesting that they got these like storyboarded descriptions here, and then here it says sentient number 2, twitch head movements, earthy tunes, toothy guy. So I think his head is supposed to be buried, and then it pops out, and he's got all these spikes or teeth, I guess. Nope, this is a different one. This is sentient number 3. So this is, well, this is not okay. So yeah, these are just different types of sentient, which don't really resemble anything that we know of in the game. Alright, so on this page we've got a bunch of sketches of... Well, so these are the most recognizable, the ones in the middle. They've got Conculus, and then Battalists are the same thing, but with, like, gun hands instead of, like, baton hands. On Tenno Shell. What does that mean? Eye shields head. Let's see. And then you've got these different versions of sentience which didn't make it into the game. So this is also something that didn't make it into the game, but there's two things that I'll note here. One is that it appears to be doing some sort of tornado generation thing, which you will see because the sentient fighters of this shape, they do this tornado attack where they will just spin around like a tornado. This appears to be standing still and generating a tornado downwards, which I don't know what that is supposed to do. But these sentients will spin around and do their own tornado attack. So it's interesting. I would bet that like this was a concept. It got scrapped, but they like this tornado thing. Side note: I'm excited for Caliban Deluxe and the Conquest. Yes, they do. Yeah, Caliban Deluxe looks really slick. I will definitely be buying that. And the fact that it makes his sentient summons have a skin is also very cool. I agree with you fully. The other thing I want to note from this bottom row of sketches is this one, it kind of looks like it has a shield, and in that sense this reminds me of the Symbolist, which is the sentient unit that has a big shield. But I'm sure we'll... Ooh, this is a lot of Era sketch. Well, actually... No. I just saw Era at the beginning and the end, and I was like, it's all Era, but it's actually all the ones in the middle are something else. Alright, so... these are all recognizable to me. So this is Era, of course. This is the Ortholist. Trying to make sure I've got all the names right. This is the Ortholist. It, when it's far away from an enemy, it will change its configuration and like mount itself to the ground, and then these become like really powerful artillery cannons. And I think its attack is like a lot stronger when it's in this long range mode. But if you get close to it, it just has like little weaker guns. This is the Symbolist, the sentient with like the big shield arm, as I said before. This is the Aerolist, the extremely annoying flying enemy that is invulnerable until you shatter these canisters. This is the Brachiolist. This is the weakest version of sentient there is. They don't even have any sort of damage attenuation or adaptation. They're just tiny things that you can just break. Sorry about that. Alright, here we've got the Typholist. I think Typholist. This thing only appears during the New War. It's like some sort of like mid-field boss that Teshin has to fight a couple of times, and that it shows up in a cutscene, and it shows up when like you're in the Unum Tower. It shows up in a couple places, but it doesn't show up outside of the quest. It's a cool, interesting boss design. It's got these hammers that it like bangs together. Okie dokie, you have to get to bed. Alright, yeah, we were pretty late tonight, so glad you were able to catch some of the stream. And yeah, I'll see you around. So down here, you've got this is the Terrorist, the Eidolon Terrorist. Its grabbing something. Maybe some sort of Grineer ship? Or it's got some long cylindrical thing, and then there's little flying units, and I'm not entirely sure if they're like summons from the terror list or if they're maybe Grineer ships trying to get this thing back. They look like little twigs or branches. It's not really clear to me what's going on here, but this does appear to be a terror list. It looks like a Grineer container to me, but if this is a terror list, then this is a absolutely massive thing, whatever it's holding. I do not know what this is. This appears to be something that was not put into the game. It's got spiky legs and like all these balls like all over, these spheres all over its body. I don't know. This is just something weird. Might have like a weird face right here. These two are the same unit. This is the Summalist. Something that you don't see very often. I think this only appears during some sentient railjack missions. Maybe they only appear in Orphix missions. But this one, I think this unit is super cool because it has like this like standing normal pose, and then it splits open and it's a portal. It becomes a portal with guns. And then other sentients come through the portal. Like, that's super cool to me, and I wish that they would show up it'd be cool to see one in a cutscene. Like that would have been cool if, during the New War, like, there was a Summalist and it opened up into a portal and Era walks through the portal. Like, that would have been, I think, a really cool visual. But I think Era might actually be bigger than these, so. It's like a mini Orphix. Yeah. And then here we've got just another thing of Era. In his, in like a, I don't know, a weird pose. I've never seen that marshmallow guy, but I don't like him. Yeah, this I don't like this marshmallow guy either. And doesn't he look like completely different from the other designs? I mean, he's got like this spiky legs, but like the marshmallows. And this red, by the way, is the only bit of color on this entire page. It's just that one. Ooh. Let me just flip ahead a little bit. Cool. I think we're on track here. What the hell? So just looking at these two, there's like a black thing and then there's like a golden thing, but neither of them are like recognizable things. You've got this weird like alien head looking thing, and then it's like sealed up here and then it's opening up here. What is this? This is so weird. Here and then here we've got the terror list again. This time he's not grabbing something random. I do think terror lists are really cool. I haven't done an Eidolon hunt in a long time, and I need to because the quills are the only syndicate that I do not have at max rank. I think I'm ranked 3 or 4 with them. I think I'm ranked 4 with the quills, and I just need to do some more Eidolon hunts and get there. And I actually do need to do Eidolon hunts. I can't get around it with like Toroids or something like that because I need the Eidolon cores to rank up. Alright, so here we've got... That's cool. Here we've got Nata, but like... So this is like Nata with like her sentient outer shell body, and I have to say, I don't know if I was supposed to notice this earlier, but did that get misplaced from the Infested? Yeah, this super weird. Doesn't look sentient. If I had to say, I would say it looks infested. It doesn't honestly look much like anything in Warframe at all. So this is baffling to me. Anyway, to go back to Nata, so Lotus gets kidnapped in the Apostasy prologue. Whoops. Spoilers for something from 2017. And then when she comes back in the Sacrifice, she looks like this. And we usually refer to when she's in her like more sentient form as Nata, because that's like her sentient name. So she is like this for all of that arc leading up to the New War. Whenever you see her in like the New War prologues or in like the random events that were happening to, and I have I think the next video after the next video is going to be just to give you guys a little preview. The video I'm working right now for the lore channel is about the old war, because I think that should be sort of elucidated on. And then the one I'm planning after that one is going to be about the New War. And so that'll cover all of this period of time leading up to the actual war, which people forget about, I think, and especially new players won't have access to like the same sort of context. So I'm going to do a video about the New War to explain all like the little events, like the things like the Jovian Concord and the Nightwave. Not so much Nightwave, actually, but, the things like Orphic's Venom, how these things play into the New War, as we experience it. So, but yeah, that's just a little skip ahead preview of what's to come. But yeah, so yeah, we see this during those things. We see Nata like this, and I thought that like this whole thing was her, and then during the New War in like the pivotal cutscene, like on the ship with like the void portal, you see this large part of it fall off, and then you just get this humanoid part, and it's still very sentient. Like her face is all segmented and broken up, and she's got like, she doesn't quite look exactly like this. I mean, if you played the New War, you know what she looks like. The quote Eidolon Lotus, she's like humanoid, very in shape, very sentient looking. But like she was in this almost like a chair, like a wheelchair almost, or like a mech body, and then like this big sentient part, and it was like attached to her, but it wasn't quite like inseparable from her, and then it fell off. And so like when that part of her fell off in the cutscene in the New War, I was like, wait, what? That's not like part of her? It was very weird. And then for the rest of the quest, she is in like this humanoidish form. And again, this is an earlier concept. This isn't really what she looks like, especially with like her feet melding into all these cables down here. I have no idea what that's about. But yeah, so I don't know if I was the only person to think that this was one indivisible unit, but apparently there's the human-ish part can be separated from the larger sentient-ish part, and that was just a very weird thing for me to see. I wish there was an option to keep Nata's look from the end of the New War when she's without her outer sentient body. Yeah, because if you get the Nata look, if you like buy it, yeah, she does have the whole body. I think, I thought there was, like, you could get the Eidolon Lotus, where she's got, I'm trying to like look this up, but well, whatever. If you choose her after the New War, she still looks like the Hugh thing. Yeah, no, I know. I've seen the I know like the Nata version has the whole thing, but I thought there was an additional thing you could buy that was just the Eidolon version. where it is just the human sentient part without the big sentient part. But I could be wrong because I haven't done a lot of Lotus customization myself. The outer form is probably part of her body since sentience at fragments. Yeah, like it could be like just a fragment of her, but then like if that's the case, isn't it important that it's gone? Like, shouldn't she try to get it back and like be more whole? Or like I don't know, and if it fell into the void, then it was probably like destroyed or rendered unusable or something. Which like like if it's a fragment of her, I feel like that should be important. The players making the choice for her makes no sense given the story. Yeah, but it's not like I think that's a thing where you have to separate because it's not the Tenno making the decision; it's the Lotus making the decision. And you, the player, are in that moment controlling the Lotus and not the Tenno. It is a little like breaking of like immersion, and if you choose to not break immersion, then you're just wrong on how on how that decision is supposed to be made. So I do think I do agree that it's like weird and possibly jarring, but at the same time, I see what DE was trying to communicate. Yeah. They did make Ballast look like a sad little meow meow. Yeah, he looks very very sad in this. This is like the of course the chimera form of Ballast after he was fatally wounded and then reconstructed as a half sentient. All right. Well. So these are also some. This is the design I've seen before. I think this is supposed to be a concept for Hunhao. This has always looked like a giant frog to me, so I don't know. I'm glad that they didn't do this. This frog Hunhao. This looks like maybe an iteration on it. Now you can see a lot more of like the Hunhao we know with like the spikes. But he's still got these curved parts. Yeah. Valves open and shut like gills. I'm glad they didn't do that. What does this say? Assembly spins? Head assembly spins? Why would it spin? Very strange. Okay. It's possible to customize her Eidolon skin to look like Nata, but she'll be missing some of Nata's parts. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess... So, okay, so there is, I guess, an Eidolon skin, but you can't... It doesn't look exactly like Nata, and... Yeah. It'd be nice if you could have, like, Nata just without the outer part. Yeah. The whole point of her choosing was to not be Ballast's doll, but then right after that we can dress her up like a doll. That, I mean... Yeah, I mean, again, you just have to sort of separate out the player from the character, which is... Yeah, not always. This is a roll below list. This spaceship scale sentient. Head and main limbs are at the front like the figurehead of a ship. So this is apparently a spaceship scale sentient that still looks funky. I'm glad they... Well, so this is what Keith Thompson was saying in the foreword. They kind of looked more organic, and then they were, this and this, and then they were like, no, we got to make them look more robotic, which is... I am glad. I think that's a more cool design to go in. Look at this. What is this? This is like a... I mean, this is very... This looks infested. This does not look sentient. This looks Phyrexian, honestly. If you... any of you play Magic the Gathering and are familiar with like the lore about Phyrexia, this looks very... With like the flayed skin and then like the porcelain shell here, it just looks like this is from Elesh Norin's domain. Very, very out of place to me to be in the sentient section. Just very weird. And then this, I've also seen this concept before as some sort of sentient unit. It looks like it's got like additional turrets like up on its shoulders, and this like long tube arm, and then this arm, which you may or may not recognize as the Shidu, the sentient arm cannon. It looks like citrine. It does look like citrine, and that's just more annoying to me for some reason. Magic the Gathering is for nerds, unlike Warframe. Yes, it's true. It's true. We can never be nerds about Warframe. Ooh, here we go. Yeah, just continuing to flip forward a bit. What do we at on time? We got about 15, 17 minutes until 9. Poor Mag got split. It does, I didn't say it. It does a little bit look like Mag, especially with sort of the spiral shapes on the arms. And it's possible that's what they were thinking of because, of course, Mag Prime does get turned into an Archon as we see in the new war. So it could be Mag, but the flayed skin looking part of it just looks. I mean, it's like very distracting. I'm like, okay, well, this is. All right, so here we've got, these are not labeled. However, these were shown off at the 2017 TennoCon demo, the one that I mentioned earlier, the art panel. Sorry, not the demo, but the art panel, where they showed off, and they were, so this is Pregasa. These are concepts for Pregasa. They didn't have a name for her at the time, but they called her, they said it was the first sentient, the first one that was sent out to terraform, to build the rail, and to go to Tau. Not the prototype thing, like the starfish thing from the, that was like a prototype. But this is like the first one they built and sent out, and it was like, it was going to be in need of repair, because it was just like drifting, dead. They had some interesting plans like way back. Like I said, this was in 2017, so this was a fair bit before any of this would actually show up in the game. A literal mothership, yeah. But yeah, and she's supposed to resemble like a baleen whale, which is why the front here and here has these the teeth that are like a baleen whale. Whales they gulp in huge amounts of water. And then they trap anything that is nutritious or useful to them, and then they just expel the water back out through their teeth. And so this thing was supposed to be constantly ingesting material to rebuild itself and to just seek nutrients. And that is largely, that concept sort of continued on into the real game. There's like a line in the new war about how Pregasa does do this, and when she shows up in the new war, there's like a when you're in Railjack, there's like a vortex effect that sucks you into like her mouth zone, and you can't actually get sucked into the mouth, but there's like a pulling effect, which I thought was a very interesting thing to add that I think a lot of people would not notice, but I got lost on my way when I was flying around, and I was like, what is this? I see a snake, which is probably intentional because of Apophis. That was like one of those deep sea eels. Yeah, so it does also look like a snake, look like an eel. Yeah, it's they wanted the mouth specifically to look like a whale, but and so this is the ship in the process of rebuilding itself. So it's putting out like this energy tendrils, and these even look like blood vessels, which is very cool, that have like the grid of what needs to happen, and then as it gathers in materials to rebuild, it will fill in that grid space with like ship, like it's got the blueprints, and it's now going to build along those blueprints. So it's gonna build itself into like this big T shape for some reason. I don't know why. And this might be recognized. Like I think this T-shaped later turned into the Murexes, because the Murexes have got this, or actually the plural of Murex is Murex. But the Murex just have these big triangle shapes, which is sort of, you could see might have been adapted from this. And they have also got a lot of like red energy. So I think, even though this is a Pergasa concept, I think parts of this were eventually just turned into the Murex, which, Pergasa and the Murex use the same internal tile set, so. Apophis is a giant serpent from Egypt mythology that tried to devour the sun. Yeah, well, okay, that is an interesting comparison. I do wonder, because in this panel they didn't talk about this ship devouring the sun. I do think they talked about like maybe small planets. So I do wonder when they decided to work in the fact that like, oh, Pergasa would consume the sun. Oh man, it is getting late. So here we've got, these are the sentient railjack ships, the Gyrex and the Ionyx. I don't know, I think this is the Gyrex and this is the Ionyx, but I actually don't know them apart. This says fast, agile AoE attack on nearby units. This says medium range homing missiles attack backup unit. Barrels, spins, and shoots all missiles in a single volley. Missile spreads and starts homing in on the target. Okay. So this ship is supposed to fire all of its missiles in like a cloud, and then the missiles, once they launch, then they turn and start homing. Which I will say, just because I was already primed to talk about this and notice it, this is how the missiles work in The Expanse. Just to continue making tiny little connections that probably don't mean anything. But I always thought, and probably, I'm sure other space sci-fi combat, as well. But I've always liked the space battles in The Expanse, and I've always thought the torpedoes were super cool, because you like fire them out and then they angle and maneuver in midair to hit their targets. It looks very cool on The Expanse, and it looks very, very similar to this concept art. But the concept is basic enough that you can't be like, oh, this is from The Expanse. I'm just noticing that little comparison there. This is an Orphix or a Chondrix. They're basically the same thing, just one's bigger. This is, I think, a version of sentient ship that we just have not seen. Medium, long range, big cannon attack, more accurate at long distance. Cannon build-up phase can be interrupted to stop the attack. So this is some sort of long range cannon ship, which is interesting, and this never made it into the game. There's a few. I really, really enjoyed Operation Scarlet Spear. I know that there are mixed opinions on this, and I know that DE have said that they're not going to bring it back because the technical issues around Squad Link were like a thing that they couldn't end up solving for good. But I just personally have very fond memories of Operation Scarlet Spear. It was like, in the middle of the pandemic, of course, which was a very uncertain and weird time. But, they were like, for me at least, at my job, they were like, oh, you can't come into the lab, but it's not like I wasn't getting paid. So I just sat at home for like the month of March while I was trying to file the paperwork to get exemptions to go back into the lab and work. But for like that whole month, I was like sitting at home playing Scarlet Spear all day, and racked up a decent amount of points on that. And it was really fun. I thought it was a really fun event, and it had a bunch of different sentients that never returned. Not even in the follow-up event, Orphix Venom, which introduced a lot of sentient units which are still around if you want to do the Orphix missions for some reason. As Cyrus says, they are impossible. No one does them, which is like one part of the problem, but also they're just like not super fun, I think. I didn't find the Orphix missions as fun as I found Operation Scarlet Spear. But Scarlet Spear had like the Splintrex boarding parties, which don't exist anymore, I'm nearly positive. And then there were like the ones that the Splintrex was the boarding ship. Hello, Sully. My cat once again wants to be part of the action. My cavat. Oh, Sully, should I rename you Kalimos? No, don't eat those. But yeah, the ship, the boarding ship was like unique, and then the units that it spit out that attack you on the ship were also unique. The Anu Mantalists, and like there were Vomvalus type ones that would like ice up your guns. There were just there were very interesting. Well, not necessarily interesting, but they were unique sentient units that never showed up again. Yeah, that's just a little. I mean, I feel like they could bring those back at least, even if they don't bring back the event. Anyway, all right, we gotta keep looking, buddy. So I'm just gonna put you down for now. All right. If he had just stayed on this page, I wouldn't have moved him. But here we've got the Chondrix / Orphix. Again, they basically use the same model. But yeah, with like the two. You've got like the mouth here with the 6 hands, and then like the arch arms that reach up and during the New War, these actually shoot lasers, which they don't do that at any other point in time. But during the New War, when Call shows up, these things shoot lasers for no reason. Cat leaves, so I go to bed. Good night. All right, good to see you, Ninja. And see you around. The stream is close to over. We've got 5 minutes left, and like I said, I think after a couple more pages, we'll call it quits, because then we get, like I said, we get to the the bigger showcasier pages. But we've got a few more diagrams. So this is a big sentient ship that doesn't really resemble anything that we've seen. Here, buddy. Here, come over here. This is like some big sentient ship. Energy sails, bridge. The bridge is here. Engines are these things sort of on the wings. Shield generators, multi-purpose... Oh, so these sockets along the edge are labeled as multi-purpose slots, and here is an example. Here's a shield generator that's plugged into the socket, like as an example. Weak point is this glowing thing here, I think, is labeled the weak point. And then this is like another version of it, I think. Multi-purpose slots here, weapon slots here. Energy pattern, it just says energy pattern. And then entrance is here. Okay, so this part with the entrance looks like a Murex, and even this, the way this entrance looks appears to me like a Murex. So maybe these are earlier versions of the Murex before they before they got the shape that they do now, like the triangle shape with the vertical lines. Maybe because these look like sentient like ground units. Like you could maybe encounter these like in a mission. So it's interesting that their original concept for the sentient ships looked to be like sentience but in space, whereas now the sentient ships are actually fairly distinct, as opposed to like like sentient units. If you know what I mean. I don't know how well I'm trying to put this. Yeah. So we're just gonna do these pages here, and end it there. Alright, so here we've got... Okay, so first of all, this thing, again, don't know what it is. Doesn't really look sentient. It's got an anteater tongue. It's got, like, glowy but, like, goopy skin. Like, shiny. I don't like it. It doesn't... it looks more infested than sentient, and it's just weird. Leave it at that. So this, in white here, it might look like Hunhao, but this is actually something called a sentient carrier. They've showed it off on a couple of dev streams, and it did make it into the game in the new war. They show up on like a specific part of the Call mission where he has to like sneak, and these guys are floating above head with beams of light, and you have to stay out of the beams of light. And that's the only way they show up in the game, unfortunately, which is unfortunate because they have this cool... They're basically drop ships. They carry sentience along this outer ring, and they move in, and then they drop the sentience in. If you've like fought them sentience a lot on Lua, you'll know that when the Battalists and Conculus arrive, they like drop vertically from the sky, which is I think a very cool way to make an entrance. There's something about it because they float, right? They hover, so they drop down very quickly. They zip down and then they stop a little bit above the ground because they hover. They don't actually touch the ground. I don't know why, but the motion of that. I've been doing a lot of like the Lua Circulus survival, and the sentients show up all the time there. And I always thought the motion of them falling down from the sky and then stopping before they hit the ground, and they stop really suddenly. They just like come to an abrupt stop. I don't know. There's something about the motion of that entrance that is really interesting and like appealing to me. Anyway, but these would also do that. They would drop them from these rings, and they would make that same motion where they drop down. But they don't really do that. They show up. They show up in the new war. I think they do drop sentience when Call is discovered. But the optimal thing, but when that happens, you lose. So the only time you see this is when you fail the mission, which is not good. So they're criminally underused for how cool I think they are. Anyway, in this concept, you have a bunch of Tenno in Arcwing fighting it. So it is much bigger in this concept art, and they're fighting it in space. Which, it could also be... It potentially is Hunhao. It does appear more like a Tenno carrier to me, but that does look very similar to Hunhao, who is big and was at one point in space. Alright, so this is an interesting sentient that we've never seen before, but it's got like a lot of text here. So it says, a sentient, advanced self-evolving AI, can he be modular, ? Swap in parts randomly or by hand like Fraxi or Warning Forever, shmups. So I guess this is based on a character or something from Shmups. I'm not familiar with whatever reference this is, but that they were using. Heads. Interesting. So the heads of these things up here. Arms here. Mouth. Weapons. Engines for space travel. These like long... And this is a balcony, by the way, and there's a person for scale at the end of the balcony. So this thing is very large. Like bigger than a terrorist, especially with these... I would say this part here, the top part, is maybe as big as a Terra list, just my eyeball scale with this person. And then these engines that branched out from below are like massive. They're like that and a half. So this is a very big unit, and this is they're described as an advanced self-evolving AI, which which applies to like the major named intelligent sentients. Obviously, most of the sentients you encounter are just drone robots. They're fragments of the larger ones. And then the sentients that arrive in the origin system are not really capable of evolving as much or reproducing because they've been tainted by the void as they travel through the solar rail. So the ones in Tau, they do fit this description. Advanced, self-evolving AI. But the ones that we fight that were being fought in the old war and in the new war, they fit that description a little bit less so. So, and then on this page we've just got some diagrams and concepts of some of the assets that we find in the Murex tile set, which are interesting. Personally, I've always sort of like moved through this tile set pretty quickly, but there are a lot of interesting things to take note of. These are just random sentient shapes. This is like this is the Immunode Tower. This orb thing will grant. Wait, hold on. No, I'm thinking of something else. This is the Medusalist Tower, and I think it just shoots at you, and you just have to destroy this orb. It's not very important gameplay wise because I don't think it does a lot of damage, so you don't really notice it. But this is like this is called a Medusalist Tower, and this orb like circles around the tower, and when it sees you, it starts shooting at you, and you can just destroy the orb, and then the tower stops shooting at you. You've got some nice concept art of like, I think this is the sentient basin tile, which will also capture a scene. We've got this like just energy tower thingy, bony shell backside, detailed inner structure, stages of regrowth. So this is like the intact version, and this is the like the damaged version. And then as we've seen a few pages ago, it starts to regrow with this red energy grid that provides the blueprint for the rest of it to regrow, which is interesting. It's an interesting concept. Like you wonder what that red energy is, and how it works like that. And then here, I'm sure many of you will recognize this. This is the thing. These like spheres in the wall. When you approach them, they turn red, and then they fly out and explode at you. The end. They're very annoying, I will say. And this just says, emissives turn red when player gets too close. So I don't know if this was even supposed to attack you and, like, explode. Because this just says they turn red. Like, I wonder if they weren't even supposed to attack you at first, but of course they do. They do turn red, and then they fly out and attack you. I know we said we were ending it, but this page just has a few more diagrams, and I'd like to get through the diagram part before we go into the rest of it. These are just some random sentient parts, as is this. I think this is what's called the sentient altar in like the dojo construction thing. Like this is available as a dojo decoration, maybe. If I'm remembering right. And I think this is called an altar. And if you look at the descriptions of the dojo decorations, there's like a lot of religious themes with the sentient stuff. Like there's like, oh, this is where they do their rituals. This is where they sacrifice. And it's like, oh, the sentients have like this big religious culture that is not touched on really in the lore. Which is absolute pain. Yeah, no, those spheres in the wall, very annoying. Very, very annoying. Alright, and the last thing I will note is these flowers. So this these flowers, like, this is like the final design, and these are concepts of it. But, and I don't know the significance of this, but if you have finished the new war and then you go out and spend any time on the plains of Eidolon, you will find that these flowers are growing everywhere, and they're like sentient flowers. Is, I think, like the implication, and the fact that they're included in this section is backing that up. And it's like, there's not really an explanation. There's no discussion. You just see them all over the plains. I think they show up more often in like places near like the crashed sentient ships and stuff like that. But they look like sentients, more so in the game than they do here. They look like sentients, like tiny little sentients on the edge of plants, on the end of like the plant stalks, and they're everywhere. They're like little sentient flowers on the plains of Eidolon, and it's like, what is this? What are they doing here? I think based on their inclusion in the section, they are undeniably sentience or sentient related. And we've had no information on them. Could be sentient terraforming. It's very possible. Never thought about how post-terraform planets look. Yeah, the sentients, especially Hunhao specifically, but the sentients were supposed to terraform the planets in Tau. They were built with that capacity, and Hunhao was intended to be the main terraformer. Lotus Nata calls him a farmer. And so, yeah, he would have been... There's actually... he actually talked about this a little bit more in something called the Reaper's Lament, which was like this little conversation that was posted on the Warframe website before Jade Shadows was released. And it was like a conversation between Hunhao and the Stalker. And Hunhao, he's like a Reaper, like a scythe can be used to like harvest food, and it can also be used to like kill and destroy. And he was talking about sort of like the duality there, how he was a farmer, and so he had scythe imagery, and then the Stalker, of course, uses a scythe as his melee weapon. It was an interesting little metaphor conversation there. But yeah, Hunhao is the farmer, the terraformer, and so these flowers could be a part of sentient terraforming. It's a very... I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it, Cyrus. It's a very interesting note. But yeah, I think with that we'll leave it. We're still got... the sentient section actually has quite a few more pages, but they're big... I'll just show you real quick. They're like big, nice landscape photos. So we can... at the start of the next stream... Let me check the table of contents. Actually, I've just got it queued up on OBS. Let's just flip over there. Yeah, so the next section is Cetus. And so next week, we will look at the sentient photos and then just move straight on to Cetus. And then, yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited for Cetus, because that's one of my favorite places lore-wise. Fortuna, the Necrolisk, I'm excited for. The new war, the Zeramin, the Duviri. So yeah, I think the next few weeks, like, my hype is up to 11. To be honest, the Grineer Corpus Infested, they're like the main core enemies of Warframe, and yet they're the most boring, you know? So, probably because they're so mainstream. So I'm excited that we're done with those, and now we're even done with the sentience for the most part. And now we can move on to like some more, Cetus and Fortuna are cool because they're like civilians. You get a glimpse of like what normal life is like for people. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at that next week. So thank you everyone for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. And we'll see you next week when we I'll see you next week. Alrighty.